Alright, that brings us to our last question, the discussion question number 3. So let's take a look. Question says, 1 out of every 2 businesses in City M are small businesses. 10% of all businesses in the City M are bakeries. If all the bakeries in the city are small businesses, are at least 50% of the bakeries in the City M managed by men? Statement 1 says 30% of the small businesses managed by women in the City M are bakeries, and statement 2 says 40% of the small businesses operating in the City M are managed by women. Alright, so this looks very confusing, and it's a very typical question, okay, on the GMAT, which seems to be very confusing. We have to break it down, okay. The key is to break it down into small bits, and things will unravel as we go along, okay. And first, just the basic of percentage. So let's quickly review that. 10% of 40 is 10 by 100, right? 10 by 100 of 40, correct? Right? So 10% means out of 100, so 10 by 100 of 40, right? That is 4. 10 is what percent of 40? If I say, then it would be 10 is equal to what? Let's say x percent is out of 100 of means times 40 here, and if you solve that, gives x equal to 10 into 100 by 40. 100 goes there, 40 goes down, so 10 into 100 by 40, which is 25. Which is quite obvious directly also. 10 is what percent of 40? Means 10 out divided by 40, which is 1 by 4, which is 25%. Okay. So there is another way of looking at the whole thing, which is from the basics of percentage. Part upon whole is percent upon 100. Okay, because whatever is the part out of the whole is what out of 100. It's basically a proportion where we scale the base to 100, and then we figure out how much the percentage is. So let's say you get 20 marks out of if you get 10 marks out of 20, it means 10 out of 20 is how much out of 100, and therefore cross multiplying gives percent as 50%. Okay, so that's the basis of percentage, right? Part upon whole is percent by 100. We can use that. We can use this conversion method. All right. Now, very important tip. Okay, in percentage questions, if no numbers are given, then we can start with the base as 100. Okay, a very crucial tip this one is, because it makes life very easy. Okay, but remember that there should be no number in the question or in the statements. All right, anywhere in the problem there is no number given, only percentages are given. Then we can use the base as 100, as we can do in this question. So as you can see here, it's all about percentages, right? So we can use 100 as the base. So now let's apply all of that and break it down. Let's break it down sentence by sentence. The first sentence: 1 out of every 2 businesses in the City M are small businesses implies that 50% are small businesses, right? Out of the 100, suppose the total is 100 businesses, then out of them 50% are small businesses, which means 50 are small businesses. 50% of 100, which is 50 are small businesses. Next line: 10% of all businesses are bakeries implies that 10% of all bakeries, 10% of all businesses. We've taken the total businesses as 100, so 10% of 100 equal to the bakeries, which are 10, right? 10% of 100 is 10. So we now know that there are 10 bakeries. All bakeries, next line, all bakeries are small businesses. All bakeries are small businesses implies that these 10 bakeries are small businesses. Out of the 50 businesses, small businesses, these 10 bakeries are also small businesses. Therefore, out of the 50 small businesses, there are 10 bakeries. Awesome, great. So we've broken it down. Now let's look at the question. Question is, are at least 50% of bakeries managed by men? Are at least 50% of bakeries managed by men. Now going back, we know that the bakeries we had said are 10, right? So now the question would reduce to 50% of 10, right? 50% of 10 is 5. So the question becomes, are at least 5 bakeries managed by men? Okay, this is the crucial step. Always in DS, we have to come to the derived question, because when we break it down like this and come to the derived question, then it becomes much easier to look at the statements and then answer the derived question rather than answering the original question. So now we are gonna shoot for answering this question. Remember, this is a yes or no question, right? Yes or no, because the answer to this question can be either a yes or a no. Now, if I get a definite yes, then the statement is sufficient. But you must remember that a definite no is also a sufficient statement, because if I can answer this as a definite no, then also I have actually answered the question. Okay, now let's look at the statement 1. Statement 1 says 30% of small businesses managed by women are bakeries. Now notice I've underlined this, small businesses managed by women, and there is a bracket, because this is very important. In percentage, always do this, mentally underline all the parts which come after of. So it is not only 30% of small businesses, right? Because if that was the case, we would say 30% of small businesses, the number of small businesses we know is 50, and we would say 30% of 50, 15, which would be wrong, because here it's saying small businesses which are managed by women. Okay, we do not know that, so we'll have to take some unknown. Let's say it is X, and 30% of X, 30% of X are bakeries, right? So 30% of X, which is 0.3X, are bakeries, and they are being managed by women. Also notice that if we take the number of small businesses managed by women as X, then the number of small businesses which are managed by men becomes 50 minus X, because our total small businesses is 50, as you may recollect from the previous slide. Okay, right. Now, coming back here, so we have 0.3X are bakeries which are managed by women. Okay, now there are total 10 bakeries, out of which 0.3X are managed by women. Therefore, the number of bakeries which are managed by men becomes 10 minus 0.3X, correct? 0.3X are managed by women, total bakeries are 10, 10 minus 0.3X becomes the bakeries managed by men. And we need to know if this is at least 5, but we cannot know that until and unless I know the value of X. Great, so therefore we can say that the statement 1 is not sufficient to answer this question. Great, now let's look at statement 2. 2 says 40% of small businesses, again underline, this time it's only small businesses, are managed by women, implies that how many are small businesses? We remember it is 50. Out of that 40% of 50 makes it 20. These are being managed by women, right? So if out of 50 small businesses, 20 are being managed by women, then the remaining 30 are being managed by men. Excellent. Does that help us to answer our question? How many of them are bakeries? And what are at least 5 bakeries being managed by men is the question. So here we get this information, but we do not get the required information that how many of the bakeries are being managed by men. Therefore, this statement alone by itself is also not sufficient. Hope you're getting the train of logic. Extremely logical question. Be sure to be with me in the train of logic. Alright, great. Now is the time when we combine the two statements. Great. Let's recap a little bit. Statement 1 had given us that the small businesses managed by men is 50 minus X. If you recollect, it's going back to that slide. Right, so the small businesses managed by men is 50 minus X. Great. Alright, so we write that again. Now, statement 2, we know that 30 of the small businesses are by men. We had got that 30 of the small businesses are by men. Okay, and therefore, can we equate this? Because this is also the small business managed by men. This is also the small businesses managed by men. Therefore, 50 minus x equal to 30, which gives me x equal to 20. Recollect, x is the number of small businesses managed by women. Great. And now recollect that from statement 1, we had said that the number of bakeries which are managed by men is 10 minus 0.3x. Now going back here, if I know x, do I know this? Because 10 minus 0.3x, I substitute x here as 20, I get 10 minus 6 is 4. Hence, now I get an answer. Number of bakeries which are managed by men is 4. And our question is, are these less at least 5? And therefore, my answer is no. And when I say a definite no, that means it is sufficient. Thus, when I combine the two statements, I get that the two statements together are sufficient to answer this question. Hence, the answer is C. Hope you got it. This is very interesting. When we combine, again, we have already got this from the statement 1, that how many small businesses are managed by men is 50 minus x. From statement 2, we got that 30 of these small businesses are by men. So we equated, we get the value of x. And from earlier statement 1, we recollect that we had got this equation that the number of bakeries which are managed by men is 10 minus 0.3x. Substituting the value of x, I'll get the number of bakeries which are managed by men as 4, which gives me a definite answer to the question that no, the number of bakeries which are managed by men are not at least 5. Hence, together the statements are sufficient. Hence, the answer is C. So, it's a classic question. Just go through it very carefully, rewatch this video, make a note of all the little concepts. This kind of question comes very often on the GMAT. So, hope you master it. In the next one, we're gonna see a what if scenario where we'll change one or two things and see how it plays out. In fact, let's go ahead. So, what if? The question was, what percent of the small businesses are managed by men? Okay, so suppose the question was, what percent of the small businesses are managed by men? Instead of the given question, I'm just changing the question and leaving the two statements as it is. So now, if the statement or if the question was this, I now need to know only one thing, that the derived question would be, how many of the small businesses are managed by men, because that will allow me to answer it as a percentage, right? We know that the number of small businesses is 50, because again we can start with the total as 100. Okay, now out of this, how many are by men? Let's go to statement 1. Statement 1 had given us all of this information. This one, it said that the number of small businesses managed by men is 50 minus x, where x was the number of small businesses managed by women. But do we get an answer for this from this statement? X is unknown over here, hence statement 1 still will be not sufficient to answer our question, this question. So statement 1 will be not sufficient. But now let's see the statement 2. Okay, so here's statement 2. 40% of the small businesses are managed by women, we said, implies that 40% of the 50, which is 20, are managed by women. So automatically we had said that the remaining 30 out of the small businesses are by men, and that answers our question, because 30 out of 50 gives me a percentage of the small businesses which are being managed by men. Hence the statement 2 is sufficient to answer this question. 1 is not sufficient, 2 is sufficient, and hence the answer to the question is B. Great, so we've got this what if question also. You can create a few more, play around with this concept a little bit more, spend a little time, go through the solution once again, make this concept very thorough, a very common concept on the GMAT. Great, so hope you enjoyed the discussion of all these 3 questions, and I wish you all the very best, and I look forward to hearing back from you soon. Thank you.